I call upon the spirit of the owl, messenger of wisdom. Welcome to the Temple of the Owl. Merry meet, seekers of knowledge. I am your host, Matsowl. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day out there. I'm sending you guys positive vibes your way if you need them. Here at the Temple of the Owl, located deep in the forests of Northern California. This episode, we're going to talk about the legend of the Bell Witch. This is where we discuss magic and spirituality on all levels, but it's through the perspective of a modern witch. As always, these are just ideas to help you live a magical life and think about things differently. Take the information and do what you want with it. Thank you guys for listening and your support. We got templeoftheowl.com. Thank you guys for listening on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. I like to start the show off with what I call the MOD, or the message of the day. It's a quote that I find that helps me explain the show topic. And today's quote is, since we're talking about the Bell Witch, it's an old legend. It's important and to tell these old stories. But today's quote is, some say that the Bell Witch was a spirit, and some say that she was a curse. But after 200 years, the hills of Tennessee still whisper her name. Tonight we're talking about the Bell Witch. It's the haunting that changed American folklore. Now, the story of the Bell Witch is one of the most famous supernatural legends in American history. It sits at the crossroads of witchcraft, folklore, spirit communication, and haunting phenomena of curses. As Appalachian folk magic and the birth of modern paranormal culture. From a witch's perspective, the Bell Witch is a story. It's not just a ghost story. It's a story about fear, of feminine power, folk magic. It has misunderstood spiritual imbalance, and the dangerous line between folklore and persecution. Let's talk about the origins, the story of the Bell Witch. The legend begins in the early 1800s. Farmer John Bell and his family reportedly experienced terrifying paranormal activity between 1817 and 1820s. The haunting allegedly included knocks on walls, scratching sounds, disembodied voices, and physical attacks, objects moving, and animals appearing mysteriously in prophetic messages. Now, all that right there is classic. Has all kinds of things. It's got the paranormal. It's got even poltergeist activity, which makes the whole case very interesting. Now, eventually, the entity that they were communicating with became known as Kate, or the Bell Witch. And then, unlike all the other haunting stories, this spirit supposedly spoke intelligently. It held conversations, and it targeted specific individuals. According to the legend, the haunting began after John Bell encountered strange creatures on his property. A dog with a rabbit's head, giant birds, and shadowy animals. Now that right there, the very first part, it just interests me. Never heard anything before about a creature, a dog with a rabbit's head. What would we even call that? We don't have any legends or any other stories. You know, we have all the stories about, you know, mermaids and centaurs, half horse, half man, half man, half fish, all kinds of different, throughout the Egyptian pantheon where they were, human bodies with animal heads. But I never heard of this before. I've never heard of a dog with a rabbit's head. I don't even know what we would call that. And like I said before, in legends, I never heard of that before. Now, giant shadowy birds, that's interesting too. We talk about old cryptids like maybe pterodactyls or some sort of giant birds like albatross, or maybe a extinct species that we thought was extinct that he was seeing. But the way he says it was shadowy animals, it kind of makes me think of maybe like skinwalkers, or maybe some sort of like, I would say, demon, or like a shape-shifting monster out there in the woods. The Bell family also heard chains dragging and night whispers filled the house. Blankets were pulled from beds, and children were slapped and pinched by invisible forces. Classic poltergeist activity. The chains dragging on the floor. That's interesting. Just talking about maybe it was ghosts. Maybe that's where that came from. The whole chains dragging on the floor. Now, the entity specifically targeted Betsy Bell. And many witnesses claim that the spirit could predict events. It would quote scripture and travel distances instantly. It would reveal secrets. Even future U.S. President Andrew Jackson was later tied to the legend after stories claimed he visited the Bell property and witnessed paranormal activity himself. That's pretty interesting to have someone like that, a president, tied into this, and how he witnessed things himself. Now, whether it was true or exaggerated, the connection helped cement the Bell Witch into American mythology. In the 1700s, the settlers arrive in Tennessee, and the family settles near the Red River. Now, belief in curses and witches was already common in the area, so they already had that kind of fear going on, that hysteria. When the hauntings begin, strange things appear. According to the legend, they started seeing bizarre creatures. We talked about the dog with a rabbit head. That's when it started. I wonder if that has something to do with it, seeing the creatures first. Soon after, the scratching sounds appear in the walls, knocking and echoes through the cabin, and blankets being pulled from beds. At first, the family hides the activity from the neighbors. But in 1818, the spirit became violent. The entity targeted the family. The spirit intensifies its attacks. Reports claim that Betsy was slapped and pinched repeatedly and physically tormented by an invisible force. Witnesses also report a whispering, chanting from disembodied voices. Then the spirit begins to speak. The entity eventually develops a voice and identifies itself as Kate, which is interesting that it identified itself. This is what makes it so unique in paranormal history. The spirit allegedly held conversations and sang hymns, quoted scripture, and predicted future events. Unlike the typical ghost stories, the Bell Witch seemed intelligent and self-aware. Now, in 1819, the Bell Witch spread across Tennessee. The word of the haunting spread by neighbors, and visitors began traveling to witness the haunting. People claimed to experience physical attacks, strange voices, and unexplained movement, psychic revelations. The Bell property becomes one of the first famous haunted locations in America. Now, the spirit became associated with Kate Batts, a local woman said to have argued with John Bell over land disputes. Folklore claims that she cursed the Bell family before her death. Now, from a witchcraft perspective, this reflects historic fears around outspoken women, the folk healers, and the curse lore of feminine and spiritual power. In 1820, John Bell falls ill. He begins suffering from facial spasms and swallowing difficulties. The spirit reportedly claims responsibility. On the morning, John Bell is found unconscious. A strange vial of liquid is discovered nearby. Legend said that the entity laughed and claimed that it poisoned him. John Bell shortly dies afterwards. This becomes one of America's earliest supernatural murder legends. In 1821, the spirit leaves. After John Bell's death, the entity reportedly announced that it will leave, but return in 7 years, and the activity fades. And that's interesting about the leaving for 7 years thing. I wonder if that number has something to do with any of this. But it's interesting that she left after he dies, and then she claimed that she would come back. In 1828 is when she allegedly returned. The legend claims that the Bell Witch briefly returns to visit, and John Bell Jr., the spirit allegedly discusses religion, future wars, and world events, and then disappears again. In the 1840s to the 1890s, the legend grows. Stories spread throughout the American South. The Bell Witch becomes part of Appalachian folklore, campfire legends, and paranormal storytelling. The haunting evolves from a local story to an American myth. In 1894, the story is published. Teacher and author Martin Van Bruin publishes a book, Authorized History of the Bell Witch. This book becomes the foundation for most modern Bell Witch lore. It blends witness accounts, folklore, and supernatural interpretation. It helps cement the Bell Witch into the cult history. In the 1900s, it became famous in paranormal culture. The Bell Witch becomes one of the most famous hauntings in America. The legend influences ghost stories, horror literature, and paranormal investigations. In the American occult culture, the story inspires documentaries, TV specials, and haunted tourism, and also a bunch of horror films. Today, the Bell Witch remains central to paranormal research in Southern Gothic folklore and witchcraft discussions. American haunting traditions. The site is associated with the legend. We also have the Bell Witch Cave. Now, the Bell Witch Cave has become famous, a paranormal destination. Investigators continue reporting voices, apparitions, and strange energy and electronic disturbances in the cave. Now, why it matters to witches. From a witch's perspective, the Bell Witch reveals how folklore becomes spiritual truth, and how fear shapes supernatural narratives, and women become associated with curses and hauntings. The communities project anxiety onto witch figures. It also highlights the deep connection between the folk magic, the spiritual belief, and cursed traditions in the modern paranormal culture. Hidden beneath the rolling hills, one of the most feared and mysterious paranormal locations in folklore history. We also can talk about the Bell Witch Cave. For more than 2 centuries, people have claimed the cave holds strange energy, and it's connected to the story of the Bell Witch. And one of the most known stories is that Betsy Bell and her friends, now she was the one that the entity was targeting the most. Betsy Bell and her friends explored the cave, and one day, a boy became trapped inside. Panic spread throughout the cave, But supposedly, a mysterious unseen voice spoke from the darkness, saying, "I'll get him out." Moments later, the boy escaped safely. But from that point on, locals believed the cave was directly connected to the Bell Witch spirit. There's also been many paranormal experiences inside the cave. For generations, visitors have reported whispers, cold spots, shadow figures, the feeling of dread, and strange lights and electronic interference. Some investigators claim the deeper areas of the cave feel emotionally heavy and spiritually charged. Others describe hearing voices that echo when there is no one in there. And whether it's supernatural or psychological, the cave has developed a reputation as one of America's most haunted and active paranormal locations. Now, from a witchcraft perspective, caves have always held a special meaning. Across ancient traditions, caves symbolized portals to the underworld, spiritual gateways, and the wombs of transformation, places of initiation and hidden wisdom. And I like to think of it like that, like the womb of the earth. You know, our ancestors, the cavemen people, used those caves as shelter because they didn't have anywhere else to go. So I kind of think of caves as like the womb of the earth. And that's important to witchcraft culture. And many pagan and mystical traditions believe that caves exist between the worlds. They're not really living or dead. But that symbolism connects deeply to the Bell Witch story, because the cave represents hidden fear and buried energy, the unknown beneath the surface. Well, what do you guys think? That's just some of the stories, the legend. I think there's a lot of stuff here. We could talk about the spiritual, the paranormal things happening to the woman and the poltergeist activity, which makes it, already by itself a great story. But the things in this one that I'm taking away from it is, well, first of all, I wanted to talk again about that dog with a rabbit's head, seeing weird animals. And it's interesting how in all the stories, like the Skinwalker stories, talks about seeing these weird animals, and then the hauntings start. I wonder if these animals are like an omen, like telling you something bad's about to happen, or do you think the animals bring the spirit and then bring the hauntings? I wonder what you guys think about that. But then it's also important to talk about, what's going on here. Was it a curse? Talking about the woman that he was arguing with John Bell before, and then all of a sudden her name is the one that comes up as the entity that's terrorizing his family. And so I wonder what's going on there. Is it some sort of curse? Was it some sort of revenge from beyond the grave? And let's talk about the mysterious vial of liquid that supposedly killed John Bell. Was he poisoned? Was it an accident? Where did this vial come from? And what was the liquid inside of it? How can a spirit affect the physical world like that? Bring, a poison into reality. Give it to him. Something going on there. I think we could talk about that too. I feel this one is important to history because it did bring a lot of attention to the paranormal, like investigations, the hauntings, and it brought a bunch, it kind of brought it out to people. Maybe this story is one of the first stories that people had ever heard before. that was paranormal. It happened in the 1800s, so I'm wondering if this is something that brought, like, the paranormal culture, kind of came out in the paranormal culture. And it changed, history of American folklore. It changed how we see the paranormal, and it changed how we investigate the paranormal. And also, we talk about this cave. Interesting how there's a story tied to Betsy in the cave, and then the legend kind of grows. And people to this day still go to that cave and explore it, and get paranormal investigators in there. People going down in there and seeing it. It's all the way in Tennessee. I don't see myself going there anytime soon, but if I ever was, I would like to go visit the cave, see if I can get some experiences myself. But anyone out there, if they have a chance to go to it, it'd be cool to go explore it. Let me know what you guys think about that, going there. But then I also think too is, what if this tourism, or what if this paranormal, like, explosion of people going there, what if that's what causes the haunting, adds to it, because everyone's energy is going into that cave expecting experience, and maybe that's adding energy to it. I don't know what's going on there, but it is interesting how we hear stories about caves being haunted a lot, and what's going on there, what's going on inside caves. Why are they so spooky? Why are they so tied to the supernatural and hearing voices inside the cave? What's going on there? Is there some sort of like paranormal explanation for that, or is it just all in our head? Well, I want to talk about the legend of the Bell Witch because it's interesting to me. The animals, the cave, the spiritual paranormal activity itself. So I wanted to do the show about the Bell Witch. Next episodes, we're going to start doing a new thing. We're going to start doing every episode. We're coming out every episode on Monday nights. And we're going to start doing a thing. We're going to do one topic, like a person, place, or a thing, a haunted location, a person, highlight a person. And then the next episode will be a lesson. So it'll be a topic and then a lesson about something. So that way we're getting our lessons into teaching you guys about these books that I've read about the witchcraft. Well, thank you guys for listening. Check out templeoftheowl.com. Thanks, Mike, for putting up that website. Well, I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for listening. KUAP Digital Broadcasting, Troubled Minds Radio Network. This is Matsowl, releases the spirit of the owl. Blessed be.